What's up, y'all? You're watching Union Minded. I'm your host, Eric, and today I want to talk to you about a story that's made headlines down here in Fredericksburg, but that really brought a smile to my face. You know what I mean? But I want to tell y'all about it. I like to bring y'all relevant information. But first, hit the like button, the subscribe button, the notification bell to never miss a video, and we'll go ahead and do what we do. Don't mind the balloons in the background. You know, we'll be doing things sometimes. You got to pick up balloons sometimes. It is what it is. You know, it's a festive feeling. But in the meantime, I'm parked and waiting for the go-ahead to bring the balloons to their location because we can't have these balloons seen beforehand. But anyway, back to the story. So I'm going to tell you the story, and then I'm going to relate to why it matters, okay? Why it matters to labor. All right? So without further ado, let's get into it. Fredericksburg judge declines to dismiss civil lawsuit against Delegate Durant. I don't know if you know this, but I live in the 28th district. Last election cycle, Tara Durant won down here. She beat a very good delegate who was super labor friendly, named Joshua Cole. She won by 700 votes. Wasn't much. And she used racism and angst to win. And it was disgusting. So I'm so happy that this lawsuit did not get dismissed, and instead it's going forward. It's fantastic. All right. So a Fredericksburg Circuit Court judge ruled earlier this week that a civil lawsuit filed against Delegate Tara Durant, a Republican from Stafford County, can proceed, and that she must file an answer. A request for dismissal by her attorney was denied on the week of this article. This happened last week, on Monday, I guess. The lawsuit was filed by Taylor Johns, a civil rights activist from Fredericksburg, who accused Durant of malicious prosecution after a June 2020 incident that gained nationwide attention. I don't know if you remember, but after George Floyd was murdered by the police, and we had the Black Lives Matter movement really go worldwide, down here in Fredericksburg, there was an active coalition of people that were doing protests in the streets, and they were targeted by the police, where they used tear gas and other means that were horrible. And as a result, there was a committee that was formed that had to review the tactics that were used and the instances, and what they came up with were 66 recommendations to improve policing down here, because they found that the police acted negligently. In fact, the city of Fredericksburg had to pay out some money for what they did, but that's undisclosed. You know, they want to keep it all quiet about how much, but they did have to pay out some money, and they decided to implement, I think it was something like 64 out of the 66, or 60. It was the majority, like 99% of the changes they're going to do. So the Black Lives Matter protests down here really did have an impact in affecting change down here for the better, as far as police relations with the community. And our delegate, Josh Cole, at the time was very active in making sure that the kids that were protesting were safe, making sure that there wasn't a lot of property damage. He was hands-on in trying to be a mediator between the rage and of this George Floyd murder and the people that were worried that rage was going to destroy their businesses, because that's how it goes a lot of times. That's what they say anyway. But she used that incident, and I'll get into it further. But that the Black Lives Matter protests down here in Fredericksburg really were positive, and they created 65 or so changes to law enforcement and how they treat the community that were positive for the community. So it was a good thing. But Tara Durant got famous during those protests, because what she did, and I'm trying to get to it in the article so I can give you a little bit more context. Durant. All right. Durant accused Taylor Johns of stopping her vehicle to impede traffic during a June 13th, 2020 protest over the death of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor at the hands of the police officers of Minneapolis and Louisville, respectively. As a result of Durant's complaint, Taylor Johns was charged with a Class 1 misdemeanor that was dismissed in Fredericksburg General District Court on October 30th, after she provided proof that she was at work in Spotsylvania County at the time of the incident. So Tara Durant lied because she accused this person who wasn't even there. And you got to wonder, how did she know Taylor John's name? How did she know to say Taylor John's name, right? She accused someone who wasn't even there of stopping her vehicle so that she can be accosted. Taylor John's lawsuit accuses Durant of seeking out the protesters and initiating a disturbance. I don't know if you remember, but she called 911 and claimed that people were jumping on her car and she was a damsel in distress. And the 911 operator said that the protest was sanctioned, and so that there wasn't anything that they can do except but monitor the situation. That was the claim. And she was acting terrified on the phone and everything else, right? That call got national attention because Tucker Carlson's racist butt decided to put it on his show because, you know, damsel in distress. And it got national attention. The recording of the call was featured on Fox News political commentator Tucker Carlson 9 months after the incident. 9 months after the incident, Durant announced her run for the 28th district. So after that incident, she used that to gain notoriety, right? And it worked because she went national attention with it, right? And then she ran for delegate down here. Now, Josh Cole was able to flip this district, and it was a historical thing. You know what I mean? And what Tara Durant did was utilize angst and racism to win her district back. She hasn't done anything. She hasn't proposed any bills. She hasn't done anything. She's just like a little, she's a puppet for the establishment of whatever they want to do down here, where we actually had someone who was a policymaker and who was a defender of the working people of Stafford County and Fredericksburg. So anyway, John's lawsuit was filed on December 27th, and its details are largely based on eyewitness statements from those who were present at the protest. Here's where I love this, because, like I said, Tara Durant used this incident to gain political power. But she used racism, she lied, she played the damsel in distress, and then white supremacy put it on national TV, and it gained a national recognition for this story for her when nobody knew who she was before that. But here's what really happened, according to eyewitnesses. It states that on the date in question, 4 p.m., local protest leader Eddie Banks arranged a gathering at the intersection of Hanover and Caroline Streets. The lawsuit notes that the intersection isn't controlled by any traffic signals, but has a sign reminding vehicles to stop for pedestrians in the crosswalk. Taylor John said that many of the demonstrators were minors and college students. They circulated clockwise inside the intersection's crosswalks for 5 minutes at a time before exiting the crosswalks for another 5 minutes as they decried police brutality, racism, and encouraged criminal justice reform. A Fredericksburg police officer was parallel parked on Caroline Street, 1 block south of the intersection, observing the crowd of about 30, according to the lawsuit. The complaint states that there was an immediate law enforcement presence at all times material, and that other pedestrians not involved in the protests shared the crosswalks with no obstruction. The city residents and police force were familiar and comfortable with the protesters' message, and the protesters' lawful and peaceful crosswalk routine is what's stated in the lawsuit. Taylor Johns alleges that when the protests in the city first started, May 31st, Durant began monitoring demonstrators' social media profiles and keeping track of their movements. Taylor Johns states that Durant was aware the demonstration was scheduled to take place and that she drove from Stafford to Fredericksburg to stage the encounter in opposition of the movement. The lawsuit alleges that Durant waited for demonstrators to begin walking in the crosswalk before driving east on Hanover Street in the direction of the intersection. Durant is accused of revving her engine while in neutral and coasting down Hanover Street toward the protesters at the bottom of the hill. Johns states that pedestrians and demonstrators froze within the sidewalks, fixed in terror on Durant's SUV as it sailed steeply downhill towards them. Shit, balloons are popping. That scared the hell out of me. All right, sorry about that. Revving her fixed in terror on Durant's SUV as it sailed steeply downhill toward them. Pedestrians and protesters braced psychologically, emotionally, and physically for the unknown and unimaginable, the lawsuit states. So imagine that. You're protesting police brutality, You're in the crosswalk, and here's an SUV barreling down the hill towards you, and it doesn't appear to be slowing down. But you're committed to this righteous cause, so you're willing to lay your life down for change. That's so brave. Pedestrians and protesters brace psychologically, emotionally, and physically for the unknown and unimaginable. Taylor-Johns goes on to allege that Durant coasted past the stop sign and over the white stop line and slammed on the brakes inches short of striking pedestrians and demonstrators. She accuses Durant of nearly hitting a 13-year-old boy whose parents were dining outside at a nearby restaurant. That boy instinctively and briefly splayed his torso on the hood of Durant's car as it was inches away from him. According to the lawsuit, the boy was unharmed and ran back to his parents. The protesters otherwise stood their ground within the crosswalk without ever making contact with Durant's vehicle, according to the complaint. Durant began brake pumping her car further into the crosswalk, abruptly inching towards the pedestrians and protesters, one diabolic brake release at a time. In the complaint, Taylor-Johns said that Durant's attempts at intimidation failed, so she instead called 911 to allege she's a victim. This seems... My take is, I believe it. Because it just seems like such a... Why would you come from Stafford to Fredericksburg to that particular intersection? There's a policeman already there watching what's going on. And here you come to do this. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? And we'll see. It's in court, so we'll see. It'll be litigated. But Durant tried to have it dismissed, and the judge said, no. There's sufficient evidence for this thing to go forward. In the complaint, Taylor-Johns said that Durant's attempt to intimidate failed. This isn't Taylor-Johns' first lawsuit involving the protests. She and 8 other protesters received an undisclosed settlement for the handling of mass demonstrations in Fredericksburg. Remember I was telling you about the protests and how the police overreacted and that they had to pay out some money? So they're not telling you how much money they paid out, but they had to pay out some money. It was filed against the Stafford County Sheriff's Office and multiple Fredericksburg officials for the use of tear gas against protesters as well as other crowd control measures. Then they had that executive research forum that released the report for its conduct during the protest. The forum requested 66 changes. The police department accepted 64 of the changes. I told you it was a majority of changes. So this event was actually a positive outcome, a net positive for the Fredericksburg region. And for Tara Durant to use this event and lie about it in order to gain political power, I think it's atrocious. I'm looking forward to the next person that runs against her, because I'll be knocking doors to get her out of office. She hasn't done anything for us anyway. We had a friend in labor. We still have a friend in labor in Josh Cole, and I can't wait to see what his future holds, because he's been nothing short of an ally for working people. Here we have Tara Durant, who has been nothing short but a liar about working people. Kind of is what it is. Anyway, remember, the fight isn't left and right, it's up and down, and it'll take solidarity to win always. Peace.